So DePIN, many of you work in digital assets and crypto, so you know that DePIN is the latest venture capitalist crypto obsession. So much capital has gone into the space that the combined market capitalization of company is $10 billion. So what we are going to do today, we are going to explore how DePIN is building a viable pathway for a sharing economy. I have got some great panelists, so without further ado, let's start with some introduction. Pete?
Good afternoon.
I
I've got to speak then.
a microphone.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pete. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm one of the co-founders at Kudos. We're a decentralized, or we've gone into the world of DePIN. It's got a name now, so we can use it. But yeah, we're a scalable cloud infrastructure for the Web3 space. We do actually have 2 layers to our tech stack, so we've done it slightly differently. We've built an entire compute ecosystem. So we have one product that's called Kudo Compute, which allows the kind of traditional cloud consumer world to purchase. But the bit that we really want to talk about in here, of course, is the DePIN side of things. So we have Kudos Intercloud, which allows you to connect your wallet, multiple different wallets. It's multi-chain supported, supports multiple tokens. So it's very kind of like native to the way the Web3 developers want to be able to access resource. And everything that we do from that point is based within 100% renewable energy sites as well. So we haven't gone down what I would say is the kind of traditional DePIN end-user devices, remote devices in that sense, and that's because there's lots of really great projects out there that we're collaborating on that side. But we focused on those 2 letters that you're either bored of hearing about or excited to hear about, and that's the kind of AI space. Where it demanded a very different type of infrastructure with kind of high uptime, et cetera. So I won't bore you on that side of things, but we've taken that approach. We've created that ecosystem, and yeah, really excited to be here with the other DePIN panelists here today. Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Al from Koii, spelled like the fish, K-O-I-I. We're a DePIN network as well. We are focused more on the consumer application side of things. So out there in the world right now, there's about $5 trillion of consumer hardware, and it's getting better every year. Right now, a MacBook Pro has a neural chip in it, which if you're familiar with what happened in Bitcoin with ASICs, that's effectively what's happening with consumer hardware now for AI. It's pretty exciting and powerful stuff. The very important thing to understand about this, though, is it means that you don't actually need to make a deal with a hosting provider now to build a worldwide application. So Snapchat famously spends billions of dollars a year on just hosting alone. If you wanted to launch a competitor to Snapchat in China, for example, or Nigeria or Pakistan, you would have to then go find a large hosting company and buy compute from them in order to run that product. The same applies to AI. This is no longer actually a necessary thing, which is pretty exciting. And we've now found communities in most of the emerging markets where there's kind of large groups of developers that want to build these types of things at scale, and they haven't been able to actually access the resources necessary. So we're actually finding ways to kind of go global to local, where we take them and connect them with their local community and give them the tooling from our network, and that allows them to actually go out, find a group of people who have home computers, and then host a network almost immediately. So you go from 0 to 100, and you're paying for everything in your own token, which is pretty amazing.
Okay, great.
Hello, everybody. My name's Hugo Felier. I'm co-founder and CEO at Minima. Minima is a proof-of-work layer 1 blockchain. And it's built in such a way that it's so lean and compact that every single device, whether that's a mobile phone, IoT, a car, or a sensor, can actually run a full constructing and validating node. That means that there's no centralized miners or centralized stakers that has to be part of the network. Literally, you have peer-to-peer value transfer and communication between the devices themselves. That not only creates effectively every device becomes a server at the edge, and that allows the device to be able to create tokens for access control or incentives. It allows for data attestation on device, not having to talk to anything else. And it also allows for peer-to-peer communication and value transfer between device. And so obviously, from a DePIN perspective, we're starting to support and onboard projects that are looking to build out physical infinite structure, and obviously want to tokenize and incentivize the use of that. And so we sit at the base layer, enabling that kind of tokenization on the device itself.
Emmanuel?
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Emmanuel. I'm on the marketing team at World Mobile. World Mobile is basically a DePIN company that is building out a telecoms network that is owned by the users and participants of that network. So at the moment, telecoms in every country is basically really oligopolistic. There's about 2, 3, or 4 main players that own all of the infrastructure. And what that has led to, it's led to 3 billion people around the world unconnected, many more billions poorly connected, or some just completely priced out of connectivity. And like, we're all here right now because of connection. Crypto wants to sort of bank the unbanked, but if you're not connected, you can't bank the unbanked. So we're building that network that is giving ownership back to users so that they can expand the network. They can roll out the network in their best interests. And currently we're live in 3 countries, got licensed spectrum in the US, 1,600 nodes serving 80,000 users on a daily basis, and it's only going to get bigger. I'm excited to talk about DePIN today.
So I'm going to start with you. Let's start with an introduction, definition of DePIN. I mean, we have heard from each of our panelists what they are working on, but I think it would be interesting to kind of go back to the basic. And also, if you could maybe explain why DePIN matters for crypto investors, because we know there are many investors here as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, DePIN, the definition, well, the abbreviation stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. So essentially, it's a network of physical infrastructure where the ownership is decentralized, preferably to the users, but just more decentralized than, in our case, like BT owning all of the network in the UK sort of thing. Why is it? So it's just to impress on that. It's like Uber, but you don't have Uber sitting at the middle. The drivers and the customers also have a stake in the network, so they have an interest, obviously, in propagating the network and maintaining the network. So why is it important to crypto investors? I mean, I've been in the crypto space since 2013, and the only thing we talk about in crypto is speculation, right? And all the revenue comes from speculation sources. So transaction fees being one of them, depends on transaction volume, and let's be real, 90% of volume in crypto is based on token price go up. You know, I want to get rich quick. And Messari did a great report on this. In the bear market, well, whatever you want to categorize the market, I don't believe in all of that sort of stuff necessarily. But when the market wasn't so good, most crypto projects, their revenue was down 90% because it all depends on speculation. Whereas Messari analyzed DePIN projects, and they were only down about 20 to 50%. And obviously, you know, that's because the revenue, the consumer base isn't built up as much as it could be, and we're working on that. But in theory, if you focus on end user services, the correlation of revenue with speculation is 0. So in here, everyone, at the beginning, everyone put their hand up saying, we all have mobile phones, right? All of us pay for a mobile phone plan, all of us pay for an internet plan, and we just pay it because it's useful to us. And that's what we at World Mobile are doing. If we can create packages of services that people really want, they'll pay for it month on month. And as an investor, what do you want? You want stable revenue and income source. And that's what DePIN allows sort of investors to get, a stable revenue source.
Thank you. And something, Hugo, that I would like to connect is, you mentioned about DePIN being important to onboard people to crypto. So, and I think, Emmanuel, you agree on that as well. Can you maybe expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, onboarding people to crypto, it's more like onboarding people to services that they need, and crypto is just facilitating that. I think, we're not going to get to the next billion users of crypto. We're going to get to the next billion users of people who use services that is actually sort of functioning within crypto, or is facilitated by that. And so I think that, we're looking at projects that are both working on sort of, original ways to expand out physical networks, but we're also working with companies, Web2 companies, existing infrastructure companies that are looking to actually expand out their offering to the people. I mean, for example, we're working with OEMs, automotive OEMs, who are obviously looking at onboarding a huge number of electric vehicles over the next decade, but the physical infrastructure for charging is not going to be able to compete, is not going to be able to service that. So actually what they're looking to do is actually expand out the private wallbox network and use blockchain to actually tokenize that and allow private wallbox owners to rent those out to earn income from other users. So effectively using an effective DePIN methodology to expand out an existing network from public sector into the private sector. And they're using that in order to sort of help grow at the pace that's going to be required for that size of need, if that makes sense. So, and again, the users of that system are not going to be going, I've got a crypto app on my phone. They've just got a Volvo app or a Zika app, and they just can charge with their wallbox. They won't know and care that it's effectively facilitated by the access control that tokenization gives it.
Thank you. Peter, I want to come to you because obviously you offer decentralized cloud service infrastructure. I think there's been a claim about DePIN trying to find more customers, like that could be like a challenge. How do you solve that, or how do you go after that?
Yeah, I think because of the approach that we took. By the way, we've come from like the cloud and data center world beforehand for 15 years before in a previous business, and then that was sold in 2016. And the vision was very much to create a global cloud marketplace where anyone could become a supplier, right? So any connected devices, like Minima, like Koii doing successfully, like World Mobile doing the telecom side, but for the compute infrastructure. Now, maybe it was because of the habits of the kind of previous industry that we came from, but we felt a lot more comfortable within the kind of Web 2.5 space, I guess, and we wanted to make sure that we were building something where Web 2 users could use it. They don't call themselves Web 2 on that side, but and Web 3 users would be able to use it in a way that was kind of native to them, and that kind of pivoted our strategy into, instead of creating a network of end user devices, and it's still a great vision to have for us in the future. We've created a network of distributed service providers around the world. So staying away from the AWSs, staying away from the Azure, because we can't have the impact there. But choosing renewable energy data centers around the world to create that to create that network. So we took that kind of different approach, but. To answer your question there, what that's allowed us to do is bring on these big GPU environments for where we're seeing the demand at the moment. There's like a real race, genuine race out there to build the biggest language model, right? So it started with ChatGPT, and then you've got enterprises starting to come into that space. You've got governments starting to come into that space, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of, just building out that kind of GPU network meant that we got to partner with lots of these types of providers that had that infrastructure. A lot of those have come from the Bitcoin mining world, right? So low cost, green electricity, because that's where they got the cheapest PPAs at the time, really good at running operations. They have the high density power. It doesn't need to be right next to a city, because these types of workloads can be run more remotely. So it kind of all ticks the boxes, and they're all looking to get into AI because it's the new gold rush. And instead of having that kind of halving every 4 years, they're having a doubling every 2 weeks at the moment, right? It seems. So that's kind of so that's given us a really good base that we can work with. One thing they've never done before is had a customer, because Bitcoin Network has been their customer. So that's kind of where we come in. But because of that, when we look at the kind of Web3 space on there, and how do we bring in more users on Web3 and get them to adopt DePIN Network, is the explosion of like Minima are doing and Koii are doing. You've got the validators, you've got these node operators, right? So it's a great use case. There's potentially thousands, tens of thousands of nodes, depending on which protocol they're supporting, that people need access to, and they don't want to put that into an AWS. They want a different solution there. But they still want to have that kind of guaranteed uptime, or a very high uptime, because they're supporting a blockchain, and they're going to get slashed if they drop off on with their uptime. So there's that kind of use case, but we're seeing more and more of the kind of AI, machine learning, start to come in now. And whilst it doesn't directly run on the blockchain, it requires that kind of decentralized point, or at least that kind of DePIN network, to be able to kind of transfer that through, because ideologically, that's kind of that's kind of what we're built in. So what we're seeing is a lot of the DePIN networks themselves. There's ones out there like BitTensor, Nasana was just launched as I/O. There's lots and lots of DePIN networks that are kind of springing up now that are focused around that kind of AI, machine learning sector. That they're coming to us and they're using us. So they're either integrating into our platform or they're going directly through kind of into cloud and spending directly with cryptocurrencies. So that's kind of how we set ourselves up, was really to work on a more kind of channel type model where we're working with these projects rather than necessarily the end users.
It's very interesting that you mentioned about AI, because it's true, like lots of Bitcoin miners, they are actually now building data center powered by green energy. So it's all about what is the infrastructure for the AI revolution. So on that, Al, can you tell us why, we had a discussion before the panel, so why AI need DePIN?
There's a few big problems with AI right now. One of them is that all of the projects that you're hearing about that could revolutionize the way that we do data actually need a lot of the data that's already on Google and Facebook servers. So we don't actually have access to it. And if we wanted to train a model on it, we would have to catch up to like 20 years of information that they have ahead of us. So DePIN's a great way to go and actually gather a lot of that information off the web. The more exciting opportunity, though, is, again, this thing about the neural chips that are now in most of our devices. You can now run the Llama model, Facebook's new one, on almost any smartphone or computer, which is a spectacular advancement, because that takes it from being something that you need a ton of GPUs and a large cluster in a data center to being something that you can run on renewable energy in someone's home. Combining that with the tokenomics that we've been discovering over the last 10 years in the crypto world, you get this world where you can launch a token, recruit your friends, and then run a new protocol on devices that are loaned to you effectively. And I'm glad you brought up the Bitcoin mining thing. One thing, I started out in the Ethereum world. I ran a think tank in Chicago for a while. And the thing that we saw there is everybody that had an Ethereum miner was selling their Ethereum at the same time. And so it causes these massive spikes and drops in the market. The same thing happens in the Bitcoin world. That's why the halving is so significant in the economic scheme of things. The exciting thing about DePIN, though, is that if you're using consumer hardware, you don't get that sell-off because there's so many more people involved. And so as opposed to having it all be a small group of miners with enterprise-grade hardware that they've amortized over a period of time, they have to make bills. So they have to first, in many cases, put up collateral in the form of proof-of-stake networks. So they have to go and buy some Ethereum so they can stake it on a node. Then they have to get the necessary hardware, and they have to keep the hardware online all the time, which means hiring an engineer. So now you have a huge amount of fixed costs, which means it's only viable to mine Ethereum in a certain large size, which the data centers have done very well on, but it means that eventually they do have to sell the tokens they're earning, and that damages the investor kind of prospectus over a long term, because you have these kind of unpredictable swings in the market. And with DePIN, what we're able to do is you can issue a new token directly to a consumer-grade hardware device, which could be operated by somebody who believes in the long-term investment prospectus of that product. So instead of the money changing hands from an enterprise provider to the consumer is directly going to be able to mine these new AI tokens and participate in giving them access to different information that the consumer might already have. So it really changes the game on this. I think it might actually be the tipping point that takes Web3 into a real profitable area. You could argue that Web3 really hasn't found product market fit yet. I've been in the space since 2015, and I think we've been waiting a long time for this to actually get there. And this might be the chance that we have to finally actually make it net profitable overall.
I think something else quite interesting is the point about identity. So giving identity to actually the devices, and then creating this kind of system to incentivize people via tokenomics. So Hugo, do you maybe want to expand a bit on the identity side?
Well, as I say, from our perspective, because you're running a full node on every device, effectively it means that that device has its own identity and then can be permissionlessly interacting with other devices. I go back to the example, a tangible example of automotive. The road is a perfect example of a permissionless network. It has loads of different cars who don't trust each other, but they have to be able to operate with each other. Obviously, once they become autonomous or they move towards autonomous driving as well, then literally every car has to be able to communicate with each other. And so you have to be able to have a network that can encapsulate different types of vehicles from different manufacturers, but they all have to be able to have a common communication layer between them and a value transfer layer between them. So you need to have the identity, but that identity needs to be able to sit on a wider framework, if that makes sense.
And does regulation, how regulation is kind of...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, these guys are more in the sort of in the weeds of having to deal with the regulation of that side. Obviously, as a layer one, we sort of look to sit below that. Yeah. But I mean, I guess the experience that we've had so far is that, I mean, yeah, you see that companies tend to start in one country and then maybe expand to other countries as well. But actually, you know, trying to be the solution to all different countries' regulations at this stage is very, very difficult. I'm sure the guys will sort of attest to that as well.
Yeah. Did you want to add something?
No, I was just going to make a reference to Wesley, whoever is in the room, that we ended up setting up in Gibraltar. But this is from his last chat. No, I think you know, regulation is you're always going to have to keep on top of it, ahead of it. You know, if anything. It doesn't actually impact us too much on the cloud side, as you can imagine, but it's really around the kind of token and spreading multi-chain that we have to keep on it. But
yeah, I mean, I suppose it's more. I mean, so just to jump back in, you know, I mean, so in the energy sector, you know, where you're looking at sort of, you know, potentially connecting solar devices or allowing, you know, individuals to actually sort of, you know, become prosumers rather than consumers. You know, each country has very specific regulations in terms of how that works, and also within automotive, again, huge amount of regulation that has to be going through to get sort of standards across both the EU and then into the wider countries as well. So we're still very early at that stage. So yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge, but I think that overall, you know, the approach is the right one. And you know, in terms of connecting vehicles, for example, and so that will have a solution will have to be found.
Yeah. Emmanuel, I mean, World Mobile managed to build a big project. You have got such a supportive community. So, and obviously telecommunication is kind of like one of the main use cases of DePIN. So, yeah, tell us a bit more, how do you manage to kind of like grow so fast, and also a bit about the operation as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to rewind a bit on onboarding people to crypto, and it goes into why we're able to expand so quickly, actually. Like, yes, we can onboard by proxy, you know, AI, all of that sort of stuff. That happens in the background. People out here, we all use AI by some you know, mechanism, but we actually don't know about it. How do we get people to actually use tokens? It's by providing them a service that they already have and they need. So for us, we provide people with the internet and mobile. It's either a better quality service, it's cheaper, or they've never been connected before, so they get the benefit of connection. And then we say to them, okay, what if you engage with the crypto side of it? What if you stake your eSIM, for example? You can get a discount. What if you host a node for us to provide coverage to other people? You can get your connectivity for free, and you can earn from it. So that's how you get people to use crypto, because then they've got, okay, you can pay for your connectivity, in the token. So that gives value to the token that they can then go to somebody else and say, hey, you need connection too. Why don't you use this token instead? And now we've got a currency as this space was originally built for. You know, the first line of the Bitcoin white paper, a peer-to-peer digital payment system. That's how we get people to onboard to crypto. And that's also, I think I've answered the same question at the same time, that's why we can expand so quickly, because everyone needs the internet. Everyone in this room needs the internet, needs mobile. So if we just provide a better service to them, they will go for it.
And it is easier in emerging markets like Africa, for example, than more developed countries?
I think easier is a different word. I'm not an expert in the legal side of things and the licenses side of things. I believe it's easier to get licenses here in westernized countries where there's a better political and legal framework to do that. But you know, somebody mentioned the Chainalysis report, and then you've got the consensus report, which talks about awareness and adoption, respectively, in crypto. And that's highest in Nigeria, it's highest in India, it's highest in Vietnam, it's highest in the Commonwealth countries. So there, for me, I'm like, well, it's easy to get them to use crypto because they're already using it, right? So we don't even need to go, well, we still need, because they still need a lot of connectivity. In those places, coincidentally, it's the poorest connectivity too. But it's easier to come to them and say, hey, we're going to give you internet, and you can also, you know, engage with the crypto side of things, you can earn in the crypto side of things, etc.
Okay, great. So I think we are almost at the end of the panel. So I would like maybe each of you can share what's your final thought about, this pathway to a sharing economy, and maybe also some of like the latest development at your companies as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the sharing economy has been around for nearly 2 decades now, right, with Airbnb and Uber. And I think that's massively helped all of our cases here, and, kind of blockchain elevates that and furthers that kind of sharing economy kind of movement with the community, et cetera. So where are my thoughts on that? I think we're already seeing the kind of sharing economy come across many different types of assets, right? And now it's only really recently, within the last 5 years, we're talking about telecoms assets, or we're talking about compute assets, or whatever it's going to be. That's going to scale massively. It has as Emmanuel just said, it has that kind of R number within it. So remember when we were all getting obsessed by the kind of the COVID website where it was telling, how many people had called it that day and what the R number was. It's that kind of coefficient in there that creates that virality. And as soon as you've kind of got that right within the tokenomics or within the kind of product itself, it's going to self-propel, and it's going to mean that more people are coming in, because now more people are finding a way that they can put their asset to work, they can earn from it, and so on and so forth, and it just becomes self-propelling. So in my mind, it can only really get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're really at that kind of very, very early stage of that.
Totally agree with you. We spent a long time, I think this is the hacker panel, because we're wearing T-shirts. We spent a long time.
I wore a T-shirt last time, and James frowned at me, so I put a shirt on today.
No,
I still got the trainers, though.
We spent a long time trying to get this thing right. So I got into the space in 2015. In 2014, I was building a mesh Wi-Fi grid, kind of similar to World Mobile, sort of same direction. We didn't quite execute it as well as you guys did. And throughout this whole process, we wanted to build something that could be the foundation for kind of the revolution that's happening. Because there's already a nascent desire to decentralize the internet. We're even seeing this with the TikTok stuff. Like, the internet is too important to society for it to be owned and operated by a single person or a single organization. And so now what we're rapidly seeing is people have taken just little shreds of this and now are grasping onto it. And so we're seeing around the world, in like 28 countries, people are now running Koii nodes. In the end of December, we had 800 devices on the network. And this is kind of in the testing phase. We had just started to roll it out. In the last 3 months since then, we've onboarded 60,000 devices, and the number goes up by 1,000 a day, every single day. And this is just pure word of mouth. We've done absolutely no advertising whatsoever, because once somebody who likes this finds it, they tell 5 people. And it's that easy. And there's probably never going to need to be a marketing budget for this, because people who like the concept want to bring other people in and explain it to them. And this is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because as you mentioned, it's about reliability. And so as the network gets more saturated, and I'm sure World Mobile has the same thing, as you get more and more of these devices onboarded, the network accelerates. And the reliability goes up and the cost goes down, which is untrue of any other economic system that's ever existed, I think. Most infrastructure, the cost goes up proportionally because people who are experts tend to charge more for things. So you can build data centers, but the next time you build a data center, the people who got paid the last time expect you to pay them more. And so we're seeing this, Facebook and Google are now decentralizing their own infrastructure and moving it around the world and trying to actually resource their human resources departments and move those around the world, because they can't afford to keep paying all the promises in California. And so the internet's quickly going. Sorry, I've been told to wrap it up. But the thing I'll tell all of you here is this isn't really happening in the UK or in the US, but it is happening in the rest of the world. And they love it. They love it more than anything that's been created on the internet prior. So anyways, that's my piece.
3 very quick points. Very quick points. First one is that we talk about DePIN as though it's something brand new, but actually, Bitcoin was the first DePIN project, really. If you imagine creating a monetary system that is run by users on their computers doing processing and then incentivized by the Bitcoin rewards, that effectively is a DePIN. So it's been around for a long time. Second point is, I think that, like you said, it is definitely an exciting area for growth. I think, unlike meme coins, the prerequisite for a DePIN project is that they have to have utility and deliver a service that, as Emmanuel was saying, that people want. And if they don't have that, then they die. And I think that meme coins don't have that luxury, or they have a different luxury, basically. So that is where it's going to continue to grow. And I'm very excited about the projects.
It's a great point about utility.
Yeah. Well, very, very quickly, actually. the easiest pathway to the sharing economy is giving people ownership again. It's okay to own things. You know, World Mobile, we recently did our airnode sales platform. It sold out in 36 hours. People that for the first time could own nodes on the network, and we proved that there is the demand for that. There is the demand for connectivity, and there's the demand for ownership of networks again. So that's the easiest way. Give people ownership.
Love it. Okay, thank you very much. And,